there's trouble and that they should just stick with you guys, and we'll be starting in 10 minutes or so. That's the little log out. That's the best thing to do, otherwise people may not have been streaming.
Let me know when to start.
I'm about to prompt you.
Prompt me when to start, okay?
Good evening, colleagues, and a warm welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. We are honored today to have an esteemed guest, a former South African who's willing to share all his learnings over the last few years in a topic titled Inspirational Dental Practice. We're waiting for the numbers to pick up. The numbers are picking up quite nicely. In the interim, there's just a few housekeeping rules and announcements to make you guys aware of. Firstly, please refrain from using the raised hand tab on your Zoom, but rather post your comments in the Q&A section. We'll be monitoring the Q&A, and obviously we'll pose questions to Dr. Druian after his lecture. CPD certificates for this lecture will be loaded onto your SADA platform, and you'll be able to access all your certificates under your membership profile. If you are not a SADA member, you will still be able to create a profile and access your CPD certificate. The event for tonight qualifies for 1 CEU, and we're also streaming live on YouTube, just in case you have difficulty with the Zoom platform. Also, a reminder to complete the evaluation after the webinar. On the YDC front, the YDC is in the midst of an exciting competition where we're encouraging all our colleagues under the age of 35 to submit interesting clinical cases as part of the competition, and the prize up for grab is an LED curing light. Dr. Druian and I must apologize for the delay in starting this webinar. We've been having some technical difficulties. With that being said, he promises to get you guys enthralled in his lecture. So whilst we're trying to sort out the technical issues, he's going to start his lecture. Just a reminder of an upcoming event on the 26th of October, which is next week. Our PPS series continues. The speaker is Mr. Patrick Mashlari, and his topic is going to be reviewing the retirement notion. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my friend, Dr. Mervyn Druian, who is the founder of the London Center of Cosmetic Dentistry and has over 35 years of experience in cosmetic and general dentistry. Merwyn is also an honored international past president of the Alpha Omega Dental Society, and as the first UK dentist to introduce the practice of porcelain veneers, Merwyn has made one of the greatest contributions to UK's cosmetic dentistry. So in the UK, he is known as the UK's cosmetic dentist. He's a celebrity dentist. Although the topic for tonight is on the inspirational dental practice, he's promised to give us a lecture on veneers in the coming months. So Merwyn, if you can thrill the audience, we're going to get you back in the next few months.
Fine.
So without further ado, the floor is yours. And whilst we in the background tend to the slides and the sharing of the screen, Merwyn, go for it, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, greetings, everybody. And I'm so sorry about the delay. I may be able to do some beautiful dentistry, but my technology skills are obviously not good enough. However, I look forward to visiting South Africa at some stage, and I'll present a lecture to you in person. So I want to talk about the inspirational dental practice. Here in life, some of us meet somebody who's really inspired us. And the one who really inspired me enormously and has been such a great friend throughout my professional life was Dr. Omer Reed, and I'm dedicating this lecture to him. For the older members of the audience who might be sort of 65 plus, if there are any dentists still practicing of that age in South Africa, Omer Reed was a great friend of South Africa. He would visit South Africa often as a guest of the South African Dental Association, and he'd speak at meetings in Cape Town and all over the place. And I met him when I was a young dentist in Cape Town. I was worked on the branch of the Cape Western branch of the South African Dental Association. Omer Reed was a guest lecturer at a Jubilee, South Africa Jubilee meeting in about 1974. Probably some of you weren't even born yet. And my wife and I were asked to host him and his wife to typical South African hospitality, and we became great friends. And for many years, my wife and I traveled to Phoenix to do courses with him. He was based in Phoenix, Arizona. And a lot of the dentistry that I've done today, I've learned from Omer. So today we're going to talk about relationship building, team building, case presentation, practice profitability. We're going to touch a little bit on philosophy, on vision, goal setting, happiness, pyramids, being brilliant, showing leadership, and smiles. I'm going to quote people who've made some difference to me in life and to many others. And Omer made up a lot of phrases and sayings, which we called Omer-isms. He sadly passed away about 2 years ago. And at his memorial service, which was held just before the pandemic hit us all, we celebrated his life. And then a few of us got together at a dinner and we listed all the Omer-isms, all the expressions that he said that added meaning and color to all our lives. And I'm going to share some of them with you. Some of them he made up, some of them he poached from other people. As he always said, you know, a plagiarism is when you steal something from somebody else, you know, an article from somebody else and quote it as yours. Research is when you steal from everybody. And that's what Omer did. So this lecture is based on a lot of research. And Omer would always say, you can do anything you want in life. You just can't do everything. And do any of you know what a paradigm shift is? A paradigm shift is when things change that everybody has to start from the beginning. And a great example of it was the watchmaking in Switzerland. For many years, watches were made with those beautiful movements. Sometimes they had glass backs. You could actually see the little motors working. And Switzerland was world famous for its watches. And then what happened? Japan came along and started making digital watches and battery watches and watches without motors. And that's what people started buying. And the Swiss market really plummeted. People were going bankrupt. It was awful. Well, then they started taking on the new technology. And today the Swiss watch industry is brilliant because they took the leaf out of Japan's book. And for us, all of us have gone through a paradigm shift with this pandemic. Things have really changed. I don't believe things will get back to the way they were originally. We're going to have to work with a lot more PPE. It's going to, we'll have to work slower and give our patients more time to air out the surgeries. And the pandemic's not going to go away quickly. And we're going to have to keep working like this for quite a long time. We had the same change when we had the crisis with AIDS. I don't know if any of you will remember, but until that stage, when AIDS manifested itself about 30 years ago, I don't even think we worked with gloves. The only time I put gloves on was if I was going to do surgery or take out a wisdom tooth or something. Today, of course, you wouldn't think of not wearing gloves, masks, aprons and all that sort of thing, scrubs, the whole 9 yards. So we are probably experiencing a paradigm shift as I speak. Do any of you know the word enthusiasm? There are two words, enthusiasm and charisma, which we should always have with whatever we do. Enthusiasm comes from the Greek word. It means God within. And it's the excitement, the energy you find in everything around you. And charisma, which used to be a religious term, it's something that you have in you that makes people like you, want to listen to you, want to follow you. And perhaps all of us should keep these two words in mind. So, the next thing, get yourselves a mentor. You know, a mentor saves you making so many mistakes that they might have made. So it's great in life, you get somebody who will help you, teach you, encourage you, guide you. And even if it's somebody who's not near you, not one of your teachers or somebody local, somebody who's international, they may not even be living. But it's great having mentors to guide you in your life. And always, always have an attitude of gratitude. You know, whatever we do, we need to try and astonish, differentiate ourselves, and light up. It creates that buzz, that enthusiasm, that make people want to come to you and enjoy coming to you for their treatment. Omer always started his lectures with a list, and I'm going to go through the list now. It's a list of 7 items, starting off with philosophy. What is philosophy? Philosophy is probably, it defines you, it defines how you see yourself in the world. So we all need to have a personal philosophy. We need to have a vision. Where do you want to go? What do you want? You know, it's the road ahead. We need to have a mission. You know, you sort of dedicate yourself to, whether it's having a fine practice, building up your family, establishing yourself in a community. One needs to have a mission in life. The governance is how you run your practice, how you run things. It's the building and everything else that goes with this. And together with a strategy, which is your plan, how you're going to go ahead, your structure, which is your actual equipment and everything else, and then goals. If you don't set goals, you'll never know how. You need to set a goal because you want to know where you're going. Part of the fun of goal setting is actually the road you take to get to your goal. So philosophy, vision, mission, governance, strategy, structure, and goals. These are things that you can almost build a full day's lecture out of. And in life, what do we really want? Yes, of course, we want things like nice cars, nice houses, holidays, all that sort of thing. But it all falls into 5 simple things. You want happiness. You want health. You want some wealth. And a great thing about having wealth is you can share it around. You can help others. You want wisdom and peace of mind. Peace of mind probably trumps all of them. But in life, there are 5 requirements. There are 5 requirements for success in life. The one is fun. Whatever you do, there must be a fun attachment. It must be profitable. Loss is a 4-letter word. Profit isn't. It must be win-win. Everybody should win. You win, the patient wins, whether it's you're negotiating with your team, everybody must win. And whatever you do, one should do it with honesty and integrity. And finally, with all that, you should be able to contribute to the greater good. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Now, one of the mentors I had, and I never really met him, but I saw some films of his in his later life because he lived to over 90 years of age, was Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a survivor of the German concentration camps. He wrote an amazing book, a little book called Man's Search for Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning. If you can, try and buy that book. It's still in print. Most of the good booksellers have got it, or you can certainly get it on Amazon. And it's not an expensive book, and it's a very easy read because although he survived the camps, the Holocaust as a slave laborer, he had an incredibly positive, uplifting outlook, and it's quite an inspirational book. And he was a psychiatrist in Vienna before the war, a world famous psychiatrist, And in 1943, he and his family were captured and put into those trains that took him to Auschwitz. His family were gassed immediately. He survived because he was quite a big guy and was put into a slave labor camp. And one night, it was the middle of winter, he was busy making bricks and chopping stones and heaven knows what they were doing. And he thought, you know, the Nazis could take every single thing away from him, everything. They've taken his family, they've taken his livelihood, everything. They could not take his attitude. And he felt that while he was in control of his attitude, he would survive. Such an inspirational thought. And so just remember, we are always, always in control of our attitude. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, one should have an attitude of gratitude, but that attitude is ours. No one can take that from us. So something to bear in mind. And another one who I found inspiring, controversial these days, but was Winston Churchill. And he always said that a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, but an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. How true that is. Now, I want to tell you that we are all, in a funny way, salesmen, saleswomen, salespeople. We're selling ourselves. A waiter in a restaurant is selling his services. A chef will sell his creations. We too are selling services. You can't see it, it's invisible, it's intangible, but we can achieve the impossible. Omer Reed used to always say, he'd make up words, he'd say, tangibilate the intangible, make them tangible. And if you look in Google again at a book by Harry Beckwith wrote a book, Selling the Invisible, because all of us are salespeople. It's just what we're selling. So it's something to bear in mind because it's impossible, it's invisible, but it's something that we really, funny enough, I love selling. My dad, when I grew up in Johannesburg, he had a clothing shop first in Parktown North and then in Braamfontein near Wits University. And every school holiday and university back, I would go to the shop and help sell. And even today, when a patient comes in, whether it's for routine treatment or whatever it is, I think that, you know, they are buying and I'm selling. And you have to deliver the goods, but that's how it is. And Albert Einstein, to quote him, once said, at least once a day, allow yourself the freedom to think and dream, because your imagination is the preview to life's attractions. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. I tell you a funny thing Omer Reed always said. He always said, I married a wealthy spouse and I'm inherently lazy. And I must have heard Omer probably 2 or 3 times a year, every year for over 20 years. I'd just go and listen to his lectures or do his courses and that sort of thing. And he would always bring this up somewhere in his lecture. And you know what, it's right. When you're presenting treatment to patients who, you know, they're often very nervous, they're apprehensive, there's sometimes, and usually is, financial implications. Do not project yourself out of desperation in trying to present the treatment. Just think to yourself, I married a wealthy spouse. I'm inherently lazy. If I don't get the case, I don't get the case. But it makes for a much more relaxed atmosphere. And you may think I'm joking, but try it. It really does work. I can see somebody's getting some of my slides up. So you're up to...
Merv, you just got
yes.
So we managed, Merv?
Yes.
Just to interject, we've managed to get your slides up. If you can guide us which slide you're on now.
Okay. Well, just go on to the next one. We've done the invisible, we solved that. We've done, right, here's Omer Reed. That's Omer and his wife. on a barge going down the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. And we'll have a look at the next picture. And there is Omer and myself on a barge. I must tell you a funny thing. Omer used to take a group of about 40 people, 20, almost 40 people. We're about, or 30 people, we're about 15 people on a barge on one of these river rafts. You'd go down the Colorado River for a week, and you're on the raft every day, going through the rapids and everything else, and then you'd stop on the side, you'd camp for the night, and Omer would give lectures, or we'd have discussions over a glass of wine, and the guys that were running the raft would make dinner for us, and it was a most inspirational time. He took groups down for about 30 years down the river every year. And then when I felt that this may be one of his last times, I said to my wife, I'm going to go. And I went, a friend of mine, another dentist, joined me, and we went down, and was the most amazing experience. But the first thing was the shock I got when I saw these river rafts. I thought you sit in sort of fairly comfortable chairs like you see at the fun fair, sort of thing. But you sit on like boxes, because the boxes stored all the food and everything. But it was just a most brilliant experience. I actually fell in the river as well. But as you see, I did survive. So we're going to the next picture. And Omer was actually quite casual with his patients and very relaxed. And this is how one should be. If I had a smile like that, I'd quit dentistry and go into show business. And sometimes you'd say to a patient, do you want to go into show business? We'll go on to the next slide. Just, Now this, whether Omer made this up or not, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It is so important to know that you care for the patient, whether it's your nurse putting the hand on the patient's shoulder when you're giving them a local anesthetic, or genuinely warmth. When patients come to my practice, and we've had the same patients, I've been in the practice for nearly 40 years, they're like family. Everybody knows everybody's business. We know about their children. We know about their grandchildren. We care about our patients, and they can see it. Let's go to the next one. And I'm going to talk to you about the customer comes second. Hal Rosenbluth he had the biggest travel agency in Boston. People would come from all over the place to use their agency, and they were hugely successful. They've since been taken over by American Express, but I don't even know if there's much of a travel agency anymore. But the thing is, in the heyday, before online booking and everything, travel agents were the ones we always went to for our trips abroad or whatever. He wrote this book, The Customer Comes Second. If you get a chance, it's also available, still in print. It was written about 40 years ago. You can still get it on Amazon, because I just got a copy for somebody. What does the customer come second? Do you know who comes first? Your team. Because if your team are not special to you and you to them, the customer doesn't stand a chance. And so look after your team, they'll look after you. It's so important. And let's go to the next slide. You'll see here, this is my team. These are the people I go to work for and work with. And I thoroughly enjoy my time with them. They all have become great, great friends. So this is very important. Team building, team spirit, social events with your team, dinners and that sort of thing. But really, your team become your extended family. Let's have the next one. That's it. Oh, we just missed that one. Anyway. Okay, so let me tell you about that. Voluntary vulnerability. What is faith? It's belief without proof and trust without reservation. This is where you have an emotional contact with your patient. Because particularly when you're doing, whether you're injecting a patient where it's going to be painful, or you're doing a filling, or you're going to do a veneer or something on a front tooth, can you imagine the awesome responsibility? Can you imagine the trust the patient has to have in you? And so these people coming to us for care, it's something that, you know, we have to treat with huge respect. You can go into the next one. And this is another one of Omer's quotes. The price of perfection is prohibitive. We all try to be perfectionists because that's the nature of our work. But in life, not everything is perfect. And you can drive yourself absolutely crazy by trying to make everything in life perfect. So the price of perfection is prohibitive. And sometimes you just have to relax and let up, not with your work, but with, you know, sometimes social events or whatever it is. So we'll go to the next one. I'm going to talk about an allegory. There are quite a few slides here. It's a lesson from Milton. I'll give you his name in a minute. But he took these lessons from geese that are so applicable to our practice today. And as each bird flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the bird following by flying in a V formation. The whole flock at 71% greater flying range than if the bird flew alone, going quicker and easier because they're traveling on the thrust of one another. Let's have the next one. And how it applies to the dental practice. People who share a common direction and a sense of community can get where they're going quicker and easier because they're traveling on the thrust of one another. Let's go to the next one. The guy who wrote this, by the way, was Milton Olson. So whenever a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of trying to fly alone, and it quickly gets back into formation to take advantage of the lifting power of the bird immediately in front. Next one. Lesson. If we have as much sense as a goose, we will stay in formation with those who are headed where we want to go and be willing to accept their help, as well as give ours to the others. To the next one. When the lead goose gets tired, it rotates back with the formation and another goose flies at the point position. Next one. It pays to take turns doing the hard tasks and sharing leadership with people. As with geese, we are interdependent on one another. Of course, the geese in formation honk from behind. You can go to the next one. Number 4, yeah. The geese in formation honk from behind to encourage those up front to keep up their speed. And the lesson there is we need to make sure that our honking from behind is encouraging and not something else. And then the final one, when a goose gets sick or wounded or shot down, 2 geese drop out of formation and follow it down to help and protect it. They stay with it until it's able to fly again or dies. Then they launch out on their own with another formation or catch up with the flock. And the lesson there is if we have as much sense as geese, we too will stand by each other in difficult times, as well as when we are strong. I've always said, if you're not paid what you're worth, you become worth what you're paid. And we're going to talk a little bit about fees in a minute, but I want to talk about the next slide, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some of you have got a background in psychology, will have read about Abraham Maslow. He put up this triangle pyramid in, I think it was the 1950s. It's changed many times, but this is still the basis. And it's so important that we know and we understand, because we'll understand our patients much better if we take note of this. If you've got your phones, take a picture of this with your phone camera. So in life, the bottom of the rung, we're desperate for food, water, warmth, and rest. And as things get a little bit better, we then worry about our security and safety. And as we slowly go up the ladder or the pyramid, we start making relationships. We develop belongings. We find out about love and those sort of needs. And as we go up, we start building self-esteem, prestige, feeling of accomplishment. We've done something until you get to the top, the self-actualization, achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. And this is where, when I mentioned in one of the earlier slides, when you look for the 5 wants in life, health, happiness, wisdom, peace of mind, and that sort of thing. With wealth, you can help others, you can contribute. And the self-actualization is actually where you have developed a sense of contribution. That to me is when somebody has really arrived. And I love seeing when you sometimes read about these hugely wealthy people, whether they're personalities, actors, stars, whatever it is, but you see some of the contributions they make giving back to society. That is fantastic. So, but you can apply this to many things. For example, if a patient comes to you with toothache, they've got pain, they've probably got a dying nerve or something, they probably need a root treatment or an extraction, that's not the person to start talking to them about veneers or cosmetic dentistry. It's something we really need to keep in mind and keep in perspective. Let's go to the next one. So how do we establish our fee? The fee should be the cost of running your practice plus your profit. And we'll go through that. In the next slide, Ron Goldstein, who also visited South Africa many times, and so did his partner, Dave Garber, who is South African. Many of you may know him. Dave was a partner of Ronnie Goldstein. They had this beautiful, beautiful practice in Atlanta, in Georgia, in the States. And Atlanta is where Coca-Cola has its head office, and they've got a room in their practice which has got every bottle or can of Coke that was ever designed. It's magnificent, it's like a museum. In determining your fee, you need to think of the time involved, the procedure involved, the skill, the training, the artistry, the overhead in doing it. You have to involve a laboratory, the level of difficulty. And then, of course, you always have to warranty or guarantee your work. So these are some things you need to keep in mind when you develop your fee. And we go to the next one. Whatever you buy, you should see that it amortizes in 2 years. In other words, it pays for itself in 2 years. Now, not everything does. And some things like scanners and CEREC machines and that sort of thing may not pay for themselves in 2 years, but they should cover their costs, at least their monthly outlay every month. So we go to the next question. There's 4 questions that you should always bear in mind. To whom do we owe what? Compared to what? Who owns the problem? How much is enough? And you know what? Each of these questions you can apply to whatever you want to as far as your life's concerned. But some of them I'll just talk about who owns the problem. Sometimes patients will come to you and they're in pain, and so they need a root treatment. They're going to need an hour and a half, 2 hours appointment. And then they start saying to you, oh, I haven't got time. I've got to fetch my kids from school. There's this, there's that. And they start dumping on you. And you're sitting there thinking, who owns the problem? It's their problem. They've got toothache. They better deal with it. How much is enough? How much is enough? How much do you want to earn? Is there enough slack in your practice that you can do charity work, where you don't have to earn your full fee? So keep that in mind. And of course, the next slide, another one of Omer-isms. If it's been done, it's probably possible. Give it some thought. So we're going to the next slide, which was another shot from our trip to the Grand Canyon. That was a lovely weather. I'm looking at we've got our winter approaching. At least you in South Africa got summer approaching. We've got all the dark days ahead of us. Look at the bright day. So we're going to the next one, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we set our fees, because this is, after all, a practice has to run at a profit. So your fee should be your cost plus your profit, not how I know many years ago I'd run my practice. I would just work flat out. Whatever it cost to run the practice, and then whatever was left over, that was my profit or loss. And for many years, I'd run with huge overdrafts, because you know yourself, running practices is not an inexpensive exercise. So you need to be focused. You need to try and run your practice at probably at least 40 to 45% profit, if you can. Endodontists and periodontists, where their lab fees are much less, can run their practice at 60, 65% profit. But as general dentists, we don't have that luxury. So your net profit is your fee minus your cost. And all of this you can get from your last year's balance sheet from your accountant. You see what you charged in the year, you see what your expenses were, and that's your fee. And you can actually take it down to how much it should, you can work on how many hours you run your practice in the year, divide that into your costs. And so you know what your hourly rate is for your practice. And that's what you've got to try and do every day. You know, you've got to keep yourself organized. So your expenses should be ideally 50%. If you're doing 45%, I think you're still doing okay. Your team should get between 20 and 25% of your overhead. Then you've got materials, your lab, your rent, and your general overheads. But that's generally what it'd be. If your lab fee, if you're a general dentist with a lot of sort of restorative work, your lab fee should be about 10%. Otherwise, you need to just work a bit harder. So your balance, of course, is then your income plus your reinvestment. And we go to the next slide. Here we're going to talk a little bit about the bottom line, because this is where you can really help yourself. You can cut costs. You can look to see if you get things a little bit cheaper or buy in bulk, that sort of thing. Obviously, you can increase your fees, but sometimes when you're stuck on national health or medical aid, your fees are locked in and it's very difficult. You can increase your productivity, just make yourself more efficient, plan your time. Your hygiene department should bring in probably 35% of gross. But even if it brings in 20 to 25% of your turnover, just imagine the hygienist is bringing in a substantial amount of money into the practice before you've even had to lift a handpiece. So a good hygiene department is critical and essential. All your patients should be coming back at least every 3 or 4 months for hygiene maintenance. You go to the next slide. You can practice purification and referral, purge the sparrows. In other words, you've got some patients that if you look on your day list the day before and you see they're coming in the next day, your heart sinks. You know that you've got Mrs. Trouble coming in. So, or Mr. Trouble. So what you do is you possibly ask those patients to leave. You finish the treatment, see that there's nothing going on at the moment. And if they're still giving you a hard time or they upset every member of staff, you might just invite them to leave. I've had to do it. It's not nice. I don't like doing it by letter. I like to do it face to face. The patient comes in, I sit them down in my surgery and I say, you know, I don't think we can carry on treating you. And some will say, oh, but I like coming here. I say, well, you know, you upset everybody. And sometimes they say, well, they're sorry, they apologize, and they stay on and they'll actually become model patients. But you sometimes have to have that conversation. Your top 100, these are your favorite patients. These are the patients that you look forward to seeing. They refer their friends. They never quibble about the fees. They're an absolute pleasure. Encourage them. You could sometimes have a cocktail party at the practice, invite a bunch of them to come and see some new equipment or new technology or whatever it is, or just have a social gathering, whether it's pre-Christmas drinks or whatever it is. But it's very nice. Look after those top 100 patients. And it's not just your top 100. Talk to your team because they've got a top 100. It may not even be the same as your top 100. So, and of course, it doesn't have to be 100 either. It can even be 20. But They're the ones you should look after and nurture. And managed by attrition. You may not need all the team that you've got. Maybe you can work with less team. And of course, check your insurances. Sometimes you find you're spending a fortune on insurances that you don't need. And we're going to the next one. Pankey, a very famous lecturer, clinician, wonderful clinician, set up the Pankey Institute in Florida, where people go from all over the world, colleagues go to train up, to learn new technology, new techniques. He always said a fair fee is what the person is willing to pay and you're willing to lose without anyone losing their gratitude. So a fair fee is what the person is willing to pay, you're willing to receive without anyone losing their gratitude. And that's really important. In other words, it's got to be win-win. If you feel that you've been stitched up and a patient's getting a huge deal on treatment that is really complex and there may be problems afterwards and you haven't been remunerated properly, it's difficult and can make you feel quite uncomfortable. And be in the moment, be present. When people talk to you, listen. You know, don't be thinking of everything else. Seek first to understand before being understood. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. Another one of Omer-isms. How do you understand before being understood? If you speak, ask questions. Listen to what the patient has to tell you. It's more important that you listen to them than you try and just talk and spout about how wonderful you or your practice is. 4 people come to you for treatment. Those, we're two down. Sorry. We need to just move the slides a couple down, and the next one, and the next one. That's it. Go back one. So we're coming to that. You can leave that on for a minute. There are 4 people that come to you for treatment. Those who are willing and able, those who are willing and unable, unwilling and able, and unwilling and unable. Those who are willing and able are fantastic. Those are your bluebird patients. They can pay your fee. They want the treatment, no problem. Willing and unable, those who want the treatment, but they can't afford it. Okay, you can make some arrangements. Maybe they can get a loan or one thing and another, and make sure you use credit cards and that sort of thing. So that's where you can help them. Those who are unwilling and able, this is where you can use your verbal skills. You can try and create, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You can try and create them to understand what they need. And they're able, they can pay for it, then they'll go ahead. And if they're unwilling and unable, let them go and fail somewhere else. Case presentation. If you remember anything out of tonight, try and remember this slide and the next one. These are really the 2 foundations of running a practice that's profitable and win-win for everybody. So in case presentation, co-interview. How do you, and it mainly works like for new patients. How do you co-interview? You co-interview by listening to the patient. Roger Levine, a great practice management consultant, always said, ask 12 questions to your patient before you even say anything. Find out about them. What do they do? What family they got? Anything about them. You've then created a bond, and that makes a huge difference. So that co-interview is really important. Co-discover. Look together. Use the intraoral camera. Take photos. Show them what's happening. And then when you've co-discovered, you see what's going on, whether it's bleeding gums or whatever it is, they can co-diagnose with you. You probe the gums are bleeding, take a picture, put it on the screen, and co-diagnose their periodontal disease or whatever it is, or broken tooth or defective filling or whatever it is. So you co-diagnose together, and then together you work out a treatment plan. And you can, if you're really smart, co-develop a fee, find out the values system of the patient. And that is a whole different ballgame where you really need to talk to the patient, inquire, speak to them, ask questions, find out what their values are, and you can co-develop a fee with them. So these 5 codes are really important, particularly the first 4: co-interview, co-discover, co-diagnose, and co-treatment plan. And then we go on to the next slide. And I'm telling you, when I first learned this with Omer 30 or 40 years ago, I would write it down on a card and put it behind the patient, because this is, it's almost fundamental to your treatment plans. You've gone through the codes, so the patients know the need. You are the answer. You are the one that can resolve their problems. So you come to the source, and as I said before, it works brilliantly with new patients. You say to the patient, would you like to be a member of our practice? Would you like to join our practice? You almost make them feel that the practice is like a club, like a family. And if they say, yes, this is where I want to be, I really like it here, everybody's so friendly, all this sort of thing, you know that you can then go and work out the time and the cost with the patient. When it comes to the time, give the patients choices. Do you like to come morning or afternoon, early or late? And then you can present them with a cost. And believe me, it works so well. It's absolutely incredible, but you really need to go through it step by step. So take a picture with your phone, need, answer, source, time, and cost. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And so you can, of course, be flippant with your patients. Going on to the next slide, you only have to floss the ones you want to keep, because you know, you can tell them whether they want to, if they're going to lose a tooth or not lose a tooth, whether they want to keep it or not. Going on to the next slide. This one is such a great one of Omer's. The hand that scatters gathers. You know, the more you give, the more you receive. So never be shy to give, to teach, to help. And we go on to the next slide. Napoleon Hill, he wrote this book, Think and Grow Rich, in the 1930s. It is still one of the most popular business books today. Google it. You'll see that there are so many different prints of it that you can get on Amazon. And Napoleon Hill always said, what the mind can conceive and believe, one can achieve. Read about Napoleon Hill, read the book. It will really fire you up with imagination. And Omer, of course, said, work smarter, not harder. You can move on to the next 2. And I want to quote Oliver Swett-Marden. He was one of the first business management consultants in 1908. And he said, no matter how humble your work may seem, do it in the spirit of an artist or a master. All of us are artists. Everything we do, every filling you do, you want it to be absolutely beautiful, the best you can do. And we go to the next one. Samuel Smiles, a Scottish man in 1859 said, sow a thought and you'll reap an act. So an act and you'll reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. And you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Oh man, you know, you Google these guys, they have written such amazing stuff, all of them. Viktor Frankl, Omer, I think you can Google. I think there's some stuff on his on his on the internet. These people are amazing. Carl Rogers, Omer used to always talk about Carl Rogers. People don't buy because they understand. They buy because they feel understood. This is the next slide. Why? Why do they buy? How do they feel understood? They feel understood because you've asked questions. Get people to talk about themselves. Make them feel important. I know how most of us are, I wouldn't say dentists are extroverts, but most of us are a little bit sort of self-absorbed. We've got pretty good egos and that sort of thing. And rather just listen to the patient. The more you listen to them, I promise you, the more they'll feel understood. So if you must speak, ask questions. And we'll go down to the next one. All aspects of the practice should be unique with the total baseline documentation. You've got to write, you've got to make sure that your notes are absolutely top drawer, because if there's any query or questions or whatever it is, you can go back and you've got these good notes. It makes such a big difference. And this is one of my favorite quotes of Omer's. Do the right thing at the right time, in the right place, with the right people, for the right reasons. I love this quotation. I use it all the time. And this is it. Listen to your team. If you go on to the next slide, all right, we don't have file cabinets anymore, but if you had to look at the untreated treatment that you have in your practice, you probably find you've got a lot of money there. So it's sometimes worth going back, looking to see who hasn't returned to the practice, contact them, get them to come back, have somebody come in maybe once a week just to go through people who have failed to return. And if they have failed to return, find out why they haven't come back. Some of them, we phone them, we haven't contacted them for about a year. They say, oh, I haven't heard from you. Really? They don't come for a year. They're sitting waiting for an invitation. Anyway, but just try and stay connected. You go to the next one. Rohn. Jim was an individual, a great, also wrote wonderful books. He said he would rather miss a meal and read a book. He just loved books. He learned so much, and he was so right. And happiness is not something you postpone for the future. It's something you design for the present. You know, take advantage of happiness. Don't wait and think, well, I'll be happy in a few months' time or whatever it is. Enjoy your happiness now. And we go to the next one. And this is really so important for all of us, the law of reciprocity. And when you reach this level, you begin to appreciate the law of reciprocity, because the more you help others get what they want, the more you get what you want. Amazing. The law of abundance. And here's Karl Hammerschlag. Karl Hammerschlag, I don't know if he came to South Africa, but he came to London a few times. He's a psychoneuroimmunologist. He was a psychiatrist, and he spent many, many years working in the Native American reservations, and he picked up a lot of their culture. He's also got a Jewish background, and he would combine everything. And Karl would say, come to each day with joy. And I love that. I like saying to, people in my surgery at work, joy's with me today. It's just fantastic. So just come to each day with joy. And remember, this is the next slide. Joy is not incidental to a spiritual quest. It's vital. Always dance at weddings. This one rabbi once said, if you're at a wedding, you've got to dance. You just have to take advantage of all these happy moments. And we go on to the next one. Of course, back to Omer. Happiness is a choice. It is a choice. You can choose how to react. And then we go on to the next slide. And that is my favorite slide. Those are my 5 grandchildren. That is what makes us happy. That's what makes us smile. And we go on to the next one. We dance for laughter. We dance for tears. We dance for madness. We dance for fears. We dance for hopes. We dance for screams. We are the dancers, and we create the dreams. This was typed by Albert Einstein on his own typewriter. And so, my friends, I know it's been a bit of an up and down lecture, and I'm sorry about the technological challenges, but we got there in the end. And life is really, it's about memories. And this is one of our visits to Arizona. It was the last time that we saw Omer, and it was just so amazing that we could have lunch with him and his wife, Marcy, and daughter Carrie, and Omer was his practice manager. And when I practiced at a consultancy with him, Omer came to London, and there's this girl that came from Arizona to London. Oh my God, was she out of her depth? And she went back exhausted. So beautiful Arizona. And I know we have beautiful Cape Town and beautiful Joburg. But I want to thank you very much. You can go on to the next slide. And this is the last slide. And just go one more. And please feel free to contact me anytime. This is my email address. Email me. I'll get back to you one way or another. And if there's anything, you know, I've left out, or you want any information on anything, and if I do get to Johannesburg, I promise you, Dr. Mansour will know all about it, and I'll do a lecture for you that will be in front of a screen in person and not hassle with the computer. Thank you very much. Faisal, that's it.
Wow, Merv, I think that was wonderful. Huh? I think you've really done justice to the topic. Given how we started, I think you finished it off amazingly well. And I mean, you're talking about Omer-isms, and I think out of this lecture, we can get some Merv-isms as well. I really loved the example of the geese. For me, that was probably one of the best take-home messages. I mean, oftentimes we don't realize the importance of how a team works together. Is as much it's kind of like a relay race. I mean, if one person drops the baton, the game is over. So the example of the geese was simply stunning. We have some comments, we have some questions. Before we go into it, looking back on your slide of the income and expenses,
Yeah.
We seem to have a 50-50 split or a 45-55% split. You mentioned 25% reserved for the staff. How much of the 50% that's left should the dentist take as an income or salary for himself?
Wherever he thinks he wants, but he needs to have money to reinvest in the practice. So if he finds that he gets a good income on 20 or 25 or 30%, then he must put 20% back onto refurbishing, on painting, and getting new. We're in the process of getting new furniture. You know, you have to put it back.
Yeah.
We don't work with a bonus system. Some practices like to work with a bonus system. We make sure that everybody gets the best salary in town, and they know that, and they deliver the goods, and that works really well.
Merv, there's a lot of positive comments flowing in. The first comment is from Dr. Jeff Malman.
Oh, how's Jeff?
Hi, Mervyn. It's great to hear you again. Hope you are well. Regards, Jeff. Dr. Mohammed Ahmed. Hi, is the recording of the talk available on YouTube? Fantastic talk, very inspiring. Yes, doctor, it is available on YouTube, and as soon as the lecture is over, you'll be able to view it on YouTube. Then Steve Horwitz. Hi, Merv. Greetings from Steve Horwitz.
Yeah, nice guy, Steve.
Huh? We're all nice guys in South Africa.
You are good guys. I know that.
Okay. To get into the Q&A, there's a few questions in the question and answers. So I'm just going to get into that. Okay, the first one is from an anonymous attendee. They want to know, what's your opinion on retirement? I would like to stay on in the profession that I love. I see colleagues who start hating what they do and cannot wait to get out. They turn their backs on what they do best. After a few months of retirement, they become mentally bankrupt and financially wanting. The nest egg starts to wither away. Your opinion, what would Omer have said or Omar have said?
Well, let me tell you that, and can you put on this? Oh, you got them on, yeah. Let me tell you, I am 75 and I'm not retired. I look forward to going to work every day. Yes, some days are more difficult than others. Some days are really challenging. It is what it is, but most of the time it's fantastic. And your phone. Just one sec, Andy, your phone. Sorry about that. I'm at home, so we have domestic issues too. I'm sorry for colleagues who don't like their dentistry. You know, maybe dentistry wasn't for them because it's a fantastic profession. I think we are one of the last professions where we are absolutely independent. When we're in our surgery with our patient, it's our diagnosis, it's our treatment plan, it's our responsibility. You know, it's up to us. And if you take that away, I wouldn't like it. I thoroughly enjoy going to work. I think I've seen friends, and I know, I respect what your colleague says, because I've got friends who, I'll never forget when I first qualified, I worked with a dentist when I first came to London, I worked in a practice in Wembley. And there was a dentist, he used to come in every day and say, oh, I hate dentistry. I hate my patients. You know, usually you've got the patients saying they hate the dentist. This guy hated his patients. Anyway, he retired after a short while, and that was the best thing for him and for his patients. It's a lucky profession. We're lucky.
You know, Merv, one of the wonderful things of getting an international speaker of your caliber is that it puts things into perspective for all of us. I mean, we all think we have pressure and stress in our individual setting, but obviously learning and listening from a global perspective, we see we're all in the same boat, and you got to choose what you ultimately want in life. And you've touched on it on a few of the slides that you spoke about tonight. So yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's important to get other perspectives in other places in the world and see it's what we make out of the profession. And we can, if we hate it, we can learn to love it if we just find our passion and niche in what we're doing.
100%.
Okay, the next question, also anonymous attendee. They say you might not become rich being a dentist. Although money is important, dentistry can give you a decent living. It will see to all your needs and that of your family. What is your opinion on dentists getting hands-on into other businesses other than dentistry while still practicing?
It's up to them, but then it takes them out of the practice. And then sometimes they can get into a venture that can do very well. Sometimes it can go sour, but at least they've still got their practice. So, you know, if they want to go down to 3 days a week or whatever it is and spend 2 days a week doing something else, that's up to them if their practice can sustain it. I've always been a full-time dentist. I've taken off the odd days when I've taught at dental schools and various. I used to teach at Western Cape. I used to give up a day a week at University of Western Cape when it was still running. And I'd teach the students there, you know, because that's what you do as a dentist. So but he's right, or she. It's not always about the money, but you make a nice living. You're not going to make a fortune, and it's okay. You live nicely. You work hard.
So I think I can add a bit to that one. I mean, I've also dabbled on things on the side, and what I've learned is that the grass is never greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And every business has its risks, right? And the more businesses you're involved in, the more risk you're taking. So you may not necessarily your intention may be to hedge your bets, but it may actually become more burdensome for you. So the lesson I've learned is to stick to your knittings, focus on what you can become good at, and the better you become at something, the more luck and success you draw.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next one is not a question; it's a comment by David Novice. Great lecture, inspiring. So that's testament to the topic. Yeah, I think all the quotes along the way from all these doyens throughout history really adds meat and flavor to what you've spoken about. So yeah, I can see. I mean, the appreciation is coming through. There's no doubt. Okay, the next question by Dr. Malatsi. What a beautiful lecture. It reminds me of the day I watched Dr. Druian work his magic on full mouth rehab patients. What a pleasure. You owe us a lecture on that next time. I'm holding you to
I'm doing some good cases. I'll bring them along.
Okay, let's see. There's one more here. Dr. Lance Vedetsky, long time no see. Nice to see you. I think you're attracting a lot of your friends from back in the day, hey?
Nice guy, Lance.
Okay, let's see if there's any more. Okay, the last one is a comment as well from an anonymous attendee. Great presentation about life. Thank you.
You know, I wish we would get these kind of lectures when we finish dental school. You know, when I put this together, I put it together about a year ago with my practice manager, who's better at technology than I am. And I said, this is the kind of lecture I wanted to know here when I was starting my career, you know, because you want something to inspire you and fire you up, because we are in an inspirational, we're in a wonderful profession. If I came back to life again, I'd come back as a dentist.
Yeah. There's another comment that's come through now from anonymous. I've learned not to become envious of colleagues that show off their wealth. We must not fall into a trap. And they want to know what's your opinion on that, Merv?
100%. 100%. I'll tell you a funny story. Dentists are egotists. I told you, I mentioned it in the talk. It's just how we are, I suppose. But if you go to, say, a cocktail party where there's just dentists there, Omer would say to me, and he would come to England many times as my guest, and he'd lecture to groups of dentists, and we'd be at a cocktail party, whatever. He said, watch, just ask any dentist a question about themselves, and I'll start. He says, you don't have to say another word. And you know what? That's how it is. We should just be modest, accept it. I don't think I'm the best dentist in the world. There are dentists who are brilliant. I just try and do what I can. I try to do the best I can. And hopefully patients are happy. And that's what it is.
I got a comment from Dr. Alex Kazin, who's also a friend of mine.
Oh, I know Alex. Nice guy.
Very nice guy. Greetings, Mervyn. Really inspirational. I'm only 80. If you look at Alex, I promise you he doesn't look 80.
I was just going to say, is Alex still working? Because Alex he's probably the only dentist I know who's older than me who's working. He's such a good guy.
Besides a good guy, I mean, his knowledge of dentistry is phenomenal. I mean, I've had deep conversations with him before. And the amount, I mean, the depth of dentistry that he knows and understands, it's really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Another comment from a colleague of yours, Dr. Basil Brook.
Oh, Basil was in my class.
Very inspiring.
He was a very good footballer.
Your 1969 classmate.
Yeah, he was a good footballer.
Okay, and the final question from Dr. Peter Foster. Do you have a set fee for all your patients?
I'll tell you, I have a set fee. We don't put fees out on the internet or anything like that. The only fee I put out is for an examination and for x-rays and skull and polish. But because everybody's different, you've got to look at the level of difficulty of some things. That's why I can't give somebody a quote over the phone what a veneer costs. It could be anywhere from £1,400 down to £900 or whatever it is. What I'll do is I'll get the patient in, I'll look at the need, and if the patient is really desperately needy for it, and I've spoken to them a lot, so I'll know what their value system is, I'll work out a fee for them that will hopefully work for them. And that usually works. But we have, I mean, a Crown might have a fixed fee, but if the patient's in financial difficulties, I'll lower my fee. It never worries me about the fee. Somebody phoned me up today. She's got a lady who manages her house, who's a Filipino lady who's got nothing. And she's in pain. I said, come in. Of course I didn't charge her. I mean, what am I going to do? You know, you do that. So, or if they come in and I see they're going to really give me a hard time, I'll charge my full fee and I won't budge. You know, it's hard to get to know people.
Yes. A final question from Dr. Yunus-Sidat. Obviously, it's a very. The question is kind of based on our market. Is practice sustainable at medical aid rates? And then he goes on to say, very inspirational. Thank you.
Well, look, we've got the national health and people make it manage. You've got to be very, very organized and very efficient and not waste time. In other words, if you, for example, you've got a patient who's coming in, so they have an examination, they need a few fillings. Do all your talking and small talk and everything at that first visit when they come for the consultation. When they come for the fillings appointment, they come in, they sit down, you get them numb and you start working. No, don't mess around, just be organized.
So basically, you've got to be efficient. I mean, if you're running a medical aid or an NHS practice, it's all about
But
efficiency.
even, I mean, even in private practice, I really work very efficiently.
Okay, Merv, I think that's the end of it. I mean, some fantastic comments, some excellent questions. I think obviously, I mean, you've done justice to the topic. I'm so chuffed. I mean, it's really a light-hearted lecture, but a lecture that we can take back and think about. You know, there's a lot of quotes that we can think about and look at how we create our own personal philosophies and practice philosophy. Ultimately, the goal is to go to work every day and be satisfied and happy. And I think that's what we got to be chasing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I can't thank you enough for giving me the chance to just say a few words to South Africans, and it's been my absolute pleasure, and I will be there. I've got to come back because my mother passed away earlier this year, and there's the memorial service, which will probably come back in the early part of it, but I'll give you enough notice, and I'll spend an afternoon, an evening, or whatever it is with the guys, and we'll go through everything.
I look forward to that, because I think I mean, we can learn a lot from you and your experience. And also it's a bit of nostalgia. I mean, we should be able to attract a lot of your classmates from back in the day and your colleagues. So it could be fun. So I look forward to it, and we will hold you to it.
Thank you.
But Mervyn, thank you so much. I mean, we've been friends for years, and
Thanks,
I mean, I know the caliber, I mean, of lecture and person, and I'm really so honored that you've made the time to share with us this evening. And I'm sure all the colleagues appreciate it, and it's quite obvious from the comments. So really, thank you so much, and thank you to your wife for giving you up for this hour and a half to share your time and your thoughts and efforts with us.